Crossroads. Thanks for joining us again for Defining Moments. My guest today is Pastor John Massicotte. John, why don't you introduce yourself real quick?
So I'm John Massicotte. I've been at Crossroads since 1982.
I wasn't alive yet.
Kids today. I don't know. So I've been here since 1982, my wife and my family and I. So.
Awesome. Well, John has been helping me alongside with small groups, or when I was doing small groups. I love talking with you. I love your sense of humor. I hope everybody gets how much I enjoy it. I feel like you could look at the two of us and be like, wow, those guys are cranky, but I don't think so. I think it's a ton. So today we're in a podcast to be called Defining Moments. So would you tell us all about a defining moment in your life?
Sure. I've had a lot of defining moments, actually, but the one that comes to mind now is working in my present role as Director of Mental Health Support Ministries here at Crossroads.
Awesome. Tell us a little bit how we got started in that, too.
Well, a couple of years back, Pastor Sean asked me if I would consider taking on the role as working with people with mental health issues. I didn't immediately say yes because I've learned that that's not a good thing because I've said yes far too many times and then thought better of it. But once I went home, I talked to my wife, we prayed, and we decided that was something that we would like to take on. One of the reasons that we wanted to take it on is because my wife has suffered from depression for many years. Mm-hmm. So we're sensitive to that already. So we decided that we would take that on.
That's great.
Once we talked to Pastor Sean about that and explained, or not explained, took the position, he didn't really give us any direct mandate. He gave us some materials to look at, and but the one thing that he did say that I thought was extremely important. He told us to love on people with mental health issues, and I think that's a key issue right there. So with that we started trying to discover what we could do.
I'm gonna ask you a question. This is we didn't know exactly what we're going to talk about today, so I don't have a lot of pre-stuff, and I wasn't aware of your wife struggling with depression personally. How do you feel being in a role helping people through issues that are right there in your family? I wonder. I assume maybe people have said like, well, I can't help someone in this. I'm still struggling in this. This isn't like, how could I help someone get through an issue that I haven't conquered?
Well, the thing is I think that people who are going through it or have gone through it have a better understanding of what other people are experiencing. So from my position as the husband of a wife who has depression, I've seen the toll that it takes. I've seen the struggles that people face, that she has faced. So it gave me more of a sensitivity, and the thing with my wife, and if she was sitting next to me, she would say, that she identifies much closer with people because of her struggle.
Wow.
So I believe that people who are going through it or have gone through it have a better understanding.
Wow, that's great. So here we are now. Pastor Sean has got you on the hook. You've said yes. What do you do next?
So we did some research. The materials he gave me to look at were very good and kind of pointed me in the direction of support groups. And so I started doing some research, looking for material that we could use that was biblically based, solid foundation in the Bible, but also took into account the tools and strategies that mental health professionals use.
Okay.
We don't provide counseling, be clear on that, but we do want to provide the tools for people. So I did find some wonderful curriculum from the Mental Health Grace Alliance, and so we decided we were going to start some support groups. I expected it would be my wife and I facilitating a group, and when we were talking about how to publicize this, because it's a sensitive subject with people,
Sure.
especially within the church.
Right.
And we came up with a way of people would text a number and they'd get an application, which is a questionnaire, and they would have the opportunity to join the group. We expected, maybe a dozen people. I think the following week we had 30.
Wow.
I think within a short period of time we had as many as 70 people that had applied to join the group. And I pretty much panicked. I looked at the applications and saw such a great need that was there. And I told Pastor Sean, well, I'll do 2 groups. I'll do 2 groups a week. And he said, you're crazy. He says, you can't minister to that many people effectively at the level that they may need ministry. And he was absolutely right. But by the following weekend, I had 4 more facilitators.
Wow.
That came forward. And I knew it was a God moment, because,
Absolutely.
It just came out of thin air, basically. And so we started our groups.
So you had this tremendous showing of need. Aside from being the one who okay, here, everyone needs you, were you surprised at just the volume of people who responded?
Yes and no, because I do know that anywhere between 20 and 40% of people suffer from a mental health issue in the course of a year.
Wow.
So that absolutely plays out in the Christian community, in Crossroads.
Absolutely.
So when you look out across the congregation, how many of these people are struggling? Quite a few.
And that's all pre-COVID, before so many more
Right.
scenarios were exacerbated by just the last 14 months.
Mental health issues, I know, amongst children and adolescents has skyrocketed. Inpatient and emergency room visits has skyrocketed in the last year. This has taken an incredible toll upon people. Incredible.
Wow. It's been astounding to watch, just in general, I think, as mental health has come more to the forefront of spiritual life, I guess I might say. It reminds me, you mentioned a little while ago about about mental health in church. So are you finding right now, as those people did come forward and are still connecting with you, that there are those who are still intimidated to share their mental health struggles?
Very, very many. A lot of people will sign up for our groups. We just started a group 4 weeks ago.
Awesome.
I actually have a individual that signed up from the state of Washington. So,
Wow.
We're Zooming it,
That's right.
And, we're reaching out and ministering to people who need ministry. But absolutely, I have so many people that come up to me on the side and say, I've been struggling, or, I really need your group. But they don't want to step out because of the stigma that the church in general, not specifically Crossroads, has done a poor job of ministering to people with mental health issues.
Sure.
As we had discussed before, if you break your leg, you have an accident or something, you break your leg, people are very quick to reach out to you, but mental health issues aren't covered dish type of thing. People don't show up at your house because you're having, you've been in bed for 2 weeks. They don't show up at your house with dishes.
Right.
They don't call to see if you're okay. So
now, on the side of someone who is not as personally familiar, but might be able to recognize in someone else, a struggle. Well, what would be a helpful thing to do? Like you said, it's not a covered dish. You don't set up a food train for this, or at least we haven't in the past. What's some advice to someone like me who's like, okay, hey, I'm willing to help. I'm wanting to help, but maybe I'm just clueless. Like I don't know what to do to help.
Well, a lot of times just being there, just letting people know that you do care, that how they're, and we always, how you doing? How you feeling? Most people aren't going to tell you.
Right. That's a rhetorical question, basically. Like, the answer you're supposed to give me. I don't really want to hear.
You don't want to know, really. You really don't want to know. And I've heard that from so many people in our groups that, their answer is always, I'm doing okay. I did speak to somebody recently who shared that somebody asked them and they said, I'm not really doing okay. And they said, yeah, a lot of people are struggling. And that was the end of it. And fortunately, this person kind of is more seasoned, right, and said, they kind of expected that.
Right.
But, to say to somebody when you say, how you doing? And they say, I'm not really doing very well. To come alongside and just say, is there any way I could help you? Can we talk?
Right.
Right. Or how can I pray for you? And then going further, if there's any way that you can point them in the direction of a ministry such as ours, or some other mental health facilities, or not facilities, that's not the right word.
Resources.
Thank you.
Sure.
That's the way to go. But I think being a friend and being available are some of the bigger things that we can do as lay people. And I'm a lay person when it comes to mental health.
Sure.
I'm just a minister.
So it sounds like on the one hand, there's hey, give a more honest answer when someone asks how you're doing. But on the other hand, now be ready. If someone says, or even they say, yeah, I'm fine, right? Like, oh, good. All I really wanted to hear was you say fine. Now someone has to say, no, John, that fine didn't really sound like you were fine.
If you really want to know, if you really care, look for the response.
Yeah. Interesting.
If somebody, shows the signs that they're really not okay, hey, you okay?
That's good. So tell me a little more about you. So now you've got this ministry. You're getting going. You're starting. People are showing up all over the place. God has given you multiple leaders. What are you feeling at that moment? Where is your head at?
Overwhelmed.
Okay.
Unprepared. I've done, in the last couple of years, I've done an awful lot of studying. Completed a course in pastoral counseling. And again, not that we do counseling, I don't do counseling, but just so we're at least more aware of mental health issues and the proper responses. So as I prayed, as the ministry has gone on, we've had, we started out with 3 groups. Like I said, probably around 30 people initially. We're down to 2 groups now. One that I facilitate and one that I co-facilitate with another couple. And the thing that I'm looking at now, I'm looking at my plans, my goals are to have some workshops here at Crossroads about mental health topics, training for staff and core members on mental health awareness, to try to reduce the stigma of mental illness. And a lot of our folks don't like that term, mental illness.
Okay.
Mental wellness.
Okay.
You know, call it what you will, but most of these issues are brain issues. They're not the cause. It's not a cause. Somebody didn't cause this in themselves. It's a brain issue. A lot of times it's a chemical imbalance, and people have to understand that this is an illness. This is a disease, and we need to reduce that stigma that we have on it, and have more awareness and a more welcoming atmosphere for people. So those are some of the things that I'm hoping to do.
Nice. So when you were talking about reducing the stigma, one thing that came to my mind is like, nobody has a problem saying, I'm going to the gym. No one was like, oh, why? Because you're so out of shape. Nobody looks at you and goes, oh, you're going to the gym because you're not strong and fit. Everyone would be like, oh, wow, like, good for you.
Right.
You're going to work on your health. And we went to for a while, we went to Planet Fitness. Planet Fitness they call it a judgment-free zone. That's like their motto. And the reason is because they want you to like, just come in, just get to the gym. Because oddly enough, sometimes people in the gym are like, I'm not fit enough to go to the gym.
Right. I've heard that.
Right. And which is almost an oxymoron, but you understand when we've since moved to a little more gymlier gym. And I could understand that it could be intimidating to walk into LA Fitness not at all fit. But yeah, you try to fake it and you're like, oh, look how strong I am. What would I do to then relate that to mental health, right? Looking at, and again, how I got there was looking at it more like, hey, I'm going to this group for my health. I'm wanting to stay mentally healthy, so I'm going to,
I like where you're going. I like where you're going. I think some of the things that I'll relate to our groups now is what we try to do is we try to the very first lesson is in this the Living Grace curriculum is foundational. It's who defines you. It's not your illness.
Right.
It's not your depression. It's not your anxiety. It's not your bipolar, your schizophrenia. It's God who defines you. And he says you're beloved. He says you're worthy. He says you're chosen. And when we start out with those positive things, people have aha moments. Going further on, what we're providing is just like you do at the gym. You start out small. You start out with that, the rudimentary things, and you work up. And that's what we're doing in our groups as well, because we're providing, first of all, a biblical foundation. Great. And then we provide tools for better thinking, or ways of thinking that won't bring you down into that going down the drain type of thing. Some ways so you can identify your triggers and things like that. So you're moving ahead and you're learning mental wellness and stability, and resourcefulness, and you're moving on a continuum. It's not a straight path. You may slip back. You may go around a corner here and there, but we're working towards that. We're working towards mental wellness.
Okay, so I don't know if I have the whole vocabulary to ask this, but what I'm chewing on is I hear you talking at some points about people who, hey, there's a chemical imbalance, which I believe means, really there's need for medication, right? Which, one, we support medication. That's not where I'm going with this, but I just stop and say, like, we are in favor of medicine. If it's a yes, no, I say yes. But you were also talking a moment ago about, knowing your triggers and kind of recognizing your own worth and your value, which to me is essential. But I guess what I'm looking for is, and this I'm sure is not this easy, but what's the line between, hey, you need to do some good cognitive therapy and work on it. And hey, there's also a need for some medical intervention.
Excellent question. So that wouldn't be something that I would decide. Everyone has to decide that for himself. But what our groups do is we support. We're like a part of a three-legged stool.
Okay.
You have the medical, which could be medication if it's needed.
Okay.
If it's needed, and sometimes it's only needed for a period of time. Sometimes it's long term. So you have the medical, you have the behavioral health, the therapy, the ongoing therapy with a licensed clinician, and you have the spiritual and the peer support. That's what we provide. So it's all three things where it's needed. I have referred many people to mental health professionals, and sometimes those professionals are folks who are either APRNs or psychiatrists who can prescribe medication, which is perfectly fine if it's needed. If you have diabetes and you need insulin, guess what? You need insulin.
Right.
If you have a mental health issue where it's an imbalance or something, medication is what you need, along with the other supports. So I don't know if I answered your question.
I think it helps. Again, I don't know that I had this question fully clearly defined, but yes, I appreciate the vein in which you're at. And I think what I hear you saying too is, hey, I don't have all the answers. I can't tell if someone needs X or Y or Z, but here is what we have to offer at Crossroads, not in supplement, but in complement to these other things.
Right. We want to support the full person, and the spiritual is extremely important, as we know. And once we have that spiritual foundation, and we're dealing with it, things on a spiritual level, and biblically, we look at things biblically. Then if we realize that somebody needs counseling, or if, a lot of times they know themselves, and I'm going to say pretty good majority of our folks are already seeing somebody.
Okay.
They don't always care for the person that they're seeing sometimes, because they're not supportive of their spiritual life.
Sure.
I've had that happen. One person said, well, I talked about my church and my prayer life, and my counselor said, well, I don't want to hear about that.
Interesting.
And it was like, that's a big part of who I am. And, that should be supported in therapy.
Right.
And more therapists are supporting a person's faith life, more and more. The days of, the psychological world and the spiritual world being diametrically opposed that's coming more to an end, hopefully more and more. But a lot of times, they're looking for a Christian counselor, and there's quite a number of them I've come across, and actually some right here at Crossroads.
Awesome. So, I want to shift on to you just a little more personally. What I'm hearing, there's been a really big challenge. It's been a personal thing. So could you tell us for a minute, how have you grown in the process of working at these groups, leading them, administrating them, empathizing with people? I'm sure there's a lot of ways, but what's been significant for just you personally by being a part?
Well, when pretty much from the first week we had our groups, sitting in the first group and going through this lesson, and hearing the responses from people who are struggling with this, these issues, and it was sobering, heartrending, because people are saying that they were saying how alienated they felt in the church, didn't want to open themselves up because the messages that have been given in the past, and not necessarily in this church. Again, I'm not picking on Crossroads. I love this church. I've been here for 38 years, 39 years, 39 years. But they've heard messages, you need to find the altar. You need to get more into the word. That's going to solve your problems. And while I agree with that, those things are extremely helpful and extremely positive, and we all need to do it. It's not always the answer for a mental health issue. When it comes to mental health, we need all of it. Mm-hmm. So it was very defining for me. Bring it back to your point, right? Very defining for me to hear this, and to also see my wife say, that's exactly the way I feel. Mm-hmm. And I'd seen the struggle from one side. I hadn't seen it from the other side. So it was very sobering, and I realized the importance of mental health ministry within the church. That it could have a huge impact. One individual had come into the room and could not say their name out loud. They had so much anxiety. That person is still involved and is doing phenomenal. I mean, that person may not think so, because ups and downs of mental health issues, but I'm in awe of what God is doing in this person's life.
Wow.
And I'm sure there's other stories as well. I just, I can only know from my wife and a few other people who have really taken the time to let me know how it's affected them. Mm-hmm. So, but it was extremely sobering to hear the stories. Wow. and the pain, and on the same token, it was extremely exciting to be a part of alleviating some of that pain.
So I want to tell you something. This is not typically how this goes. Where I do like, hey, let me. But I met you and your wife 5 or so years ago doing small groups, and I didn't know you guys before. Had a good conversation in my office. I still remember, because my office was arranged kind of in a funny way, which I later changed. And I thought, wow, this is a great couple. They've done all kinds of stuff in Crossroads. And at the moment, you weren't really involved in a ministry as you had typically been. I don't want to make it sound like I'm like, and I know what this guy should have been doing with his life. But I thought, man, this couple seems phenomenal. I would love to get them involved in some small groups. And a few times we talked small groups and different things, and it just never quite seemed to fit. No. It never quite seemed to click. But man, I'll tell you, in the last couple of years, having seen you in the whole mental health arena, it seems to me like I recognize why you say it's a defining moment. There are some things I can't even put into words, but I see the difference. I see the way that it just clicks, where it's what someone looks like when they're in the place that God has them to be. And they're just operating where they're supposed to be, doing what they're supposed to be doing. And I definitely see the difference from the couple that I met 5 years ago to what you guys have been doing the last couple of years. And first of all, I applaud it. Thank you so much for being there, because there's no one in this church who can currently do what you do, because this is what God called you to do. And I don't say that like, this is your role, and none of us were able to meet it. And so having you in that role, I think, is game changing. Like for the person who you were just referring to, that's a game changer from you to them, because you're where God has you. And so
praise the Lord.
I love it. I love getting to be even just a small part, like a fly on the wall kind of a part.
That's great. I'm like I said, I'm really passionate about ministering to people ministering to people in general, but ministering to people that are struggling with mental health. It's become a passion.
So As I wrap this up, the question I usually ask is, let's talk about you for a second. But I think I want to ask it in twofold. So first, what would you say to someone right now who is struggling in mental health? Maybe they don't want to really get to, hey, I had a sad day the other day, or I've been a little blue, but it's COVID, right? Everyone's a little blue. What would you say to someone who maybe finds himself in a scenario like that right now?
Well, if that blue is a continuing thing or reoccurrent, it is affecting your functioning in life, then you need to reach out for some help. You absolutely need to. You don't need to suffer that way. We have supports here. There is help available, and I people can reach out to me. I think my email's on the website, and I respond as quickly as possible, and I'll do whatever I can possibly do to help you out. But you don't have to suffer. And the thing is you're loved. It doesn't matter to God that you can't clean your house. It doesn't matter to God that you can't get out of your bed. He still loves you. He still cares. You still have value. But you don't have to continue on feeling miserable. There is hope out there. There's hope in Him, and there's hope in the help that we can provide, or that we can resource for you.
That's good.
That's good. Don't suffer alone. There's other people. If you join one of our groups, you're going to find one thing. You're going to find that you're not alone, and other people are going through the same exact thing as you are. And that was one of an aha moment. You go, I felt the same way. Me too. And it just went around the room that way. And you could almost see people's, their shoulders, just coming up a little bit. They come in the room and they're all like that. And then they're like, really? I'm not alone. And so you're not alone. Wow. So I would say, reach out. Don't suffer alone.
That's great. That's so significant. So, I think so often we think like, oh, I'm the only one. Doesn't matter what the issue is. I'm the only one. No one else is going to understand, or what are they going to think of me? Say it like, because whatever my thing is, it's got to be just me. No one can have the same issues I have, right? So second part of that, would you add anything maybe to people who not struggle on the mental health side, but just you talked about some of the significance of kind of making that change, or if you could go back to yourself even and talk to the John from a couple of years ago before Pastor Sean asked, not that Pastor Sean requesting is something is to be all, but if you kind of talk to that person, you have anything that you would share with them?
I would say, where God guides you, He provides. He's going to. He's going to give you the tools that you need. I have, in my years in ministry, I have been in so many situations where I've thought in my head, I have no idea what I'm going to do here. And of course, my next thought is, Lord, this is all on you, and He provides what you need when you need it, and if you trust Him to give you that, He will. And the most wonderful thing is when you're able to minister to somebody, and it has an impact on their lives for the better, and because I've been accused of being a mentor to people, and I always say, I'm a better tormentor, but
I've been accused of. Perfect.
But it's ministering to people, and operating in your gifts and your talents, and accepting the call that He's placed on your life and on all of our lives. Really, is to minister to one another. And so I think I would encourage people to to do that, to accept the call that God has on their lives, whether it's into full-time ministry or whether it's to whatever I do, unpaid staff is the term that Pastor Sean used at one time.
That's right.
Which
essential part of Crossroads. I really do mean that. That's the truth.
Well, I believe that too. It's you can't minister to the people that God has brought us without having people that work for free.
Thank you.
But I would say, honestly, move forward. Don't doubt. Move forward. If you feel that God has something for you, a ministry, an area of involvement, don't be afraid. Move forward. And I know for a fact, because I've been here for longer than you've been alive, that people here will walk alongside you. They
That's
will help you to succeed. We're all here to do one thing, and that's serve God. And we want everything that we do to succeed. It doesn't always, but we do our best. And God makes up for the rest.
Amen. So as we wrap this up, I want to give a couple of resources. So there might be some who are watching, some who are listening. So we'll try to get some fancy lower logo art. But our website, myccc.church, that's 3 C's. And there you can find the information about you and in your groups. But would you give us your email address and would you spell your amazing last name for us?
Amazing. Yes, my email address is...
It's J Massicotte at myccc.church.
Yeah, that's what it is. J Massicotte at mycc.church. And that is J, as in John, Massicotte, MASSICOTTE at myccc.church.
Excellent. I would have done that myself, but there was no way I could have spelled your last name, and I just wasn't that well prepared. I should have had it like on a sign behind your head or something. Today we're here with John Massicotte?
Well, at least you pronounce it right.
I try.
Yeah.
I try. My grandma would not be impressed if I did not pronounce it right. From the Fumiati side of the family.
Well, actually, I'm French.
Really? All right.
Well,
with the double E and the double T and all that,
French. Actually, a pioneer family of Canada.
Okay.
Yeah.
No I's in there though, huh?
There's one I. MASSI.
Okay. Fantastic. All right, so I'm going to close out in a word of prayer, though.
Absolutely.
Lord Jesus, thank you so much for an opportunity to be about your work, your business. God, I pray that you would help us today, help each and every person who is listening to this conversation, whether they know exactly what they need or not. God, I pray that you would help them to connect with you, to reach out with you. God, help them to take advantage of the resources that we have. God, to connect with others who understand where it is that they have been. God, I pray that you would speak to each person who is perhaps on the cusp of taking that next step, or they're dealing with it. Help them to be prepared, to be encouraged, to be thrust forward, to follow after you. God, I pray that you would be with John and his entire family, that you would bless them and keep them. God, we ask that your face would shine upon them. They would know your glory and your presence in their home today, that they would be changed and transformed by your spirit and your presence. Jesus, we pray it in your name. Amen. Amen. Thanks so much for being with us. Thanks to all of you for joining us. We look forward to seeing you next time.